Imagine standing at a crossroads where ancient prophecy meets modern reality, where events that were written about thousands of years ago seem to be unfolding right before our eyes. The air feels heavy with significance, the headlines carry a strange familiarity, and whispers of destiny stir in the hearts of millions. This is not just another story about politics, religion, or archaeology. This is about the possibility that our generation may witness moments foretold for centuries. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most profound and controversial topics of our time, the Third Temple. For some, it's a symbol of hope and fulfillment. For others, it's a warning of great upheaval. But no matter where you stand, what you are about to hear will challenge you to think, to question, and to see the world with new eyes. So, settle in because by the time we reach the end, you may not see the future the same way again. The stage is being set and the clock might already be ticking. The first and second temples were central to the spiritual, cultural, and political life of ancient Israel, serving as the focal point of worship and the physical symbol of the covenant between God and the people. The first temple, constructed by King Solomon around the 10th century BCE, was not merely a grand architectural achievement, but also the sacred dwelling place for the Ark of the Covenant. Its destruction by the Babylonians in 586 BC marked a cataclysmic event in Jewish history, scattering the people and initiating a period of exile that reshaped their identity. The Second Temple, built under the leadership of Zerubbabel after the return from Babylonian captivity, restored a measure of national and religious unity. It was later expanded and beautified under King Herod, becoming a magnificent structure that drew pilgrims from across the ancient world. Yet, the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans in 70 CE was another devastating blow, not only physically dismantling the structure, but dismantling the sacrificial system and altering Jewish religious practice forever. Both temples were more than just buildings. They represented the tangible connection between the divine and human realms, a place where heaven and earth met, and where rituals were performed to atone for sins and seek divine favor. The loss of these temples left a profound spiritual void and has since remained a point of longing and hope in Jewish tradition. Throughout centuries, prayers for the restoration of the temple have been integrated into daily worship, keeping alive the vision of a rebuilt sanctuary. The significance of the first and second temples extends beyond the Jewish community, influencing Christian and Islamic traditions and becoming a point of contention and fascination for scholars, theologians, and political leaders alike. Their history is inseparably tied to the broader narrative of Jerusalem, a city revered by multiple faiths, and their destruction is seen by many as pivotal turning points that shaped the fate of nations. This enduring legacy makes the discussion of a possible third temple deeply charged, as it connects ancient history with present-day aspirations, religious prophecy, and political complexity. For many, the memory of these sacred structures is not locked in the past, but is an active part of faith, identity, and the unfolding story of the region. Prophetic scriptures from both the Hebrew Bible and later religious writings have long been interpreted by believers as pointing toward the eventual construction of a third temple in Jerusalem. In texts like Ezekiel chapters 40-48, there is a detailed vision of a future temple with precise measurements, rituals, and the restoration of priestly service, which many interpret as a literal blueprint for what is to come. Similarly, the prophet Daniel speaks of significant end-time events involving the holy place that some see as referring to a rebuilt temple. These prophetic passages are often layered in meaning, allowing for both symbolic and literal interpretations, yet for those who take them at face value, the rebuilding is not a question of if, but when. Rabbinic teachings and later Jewish traditions have further expanded on these prophecies, weaving them into the fabric of daily prayer and religious hope. The expectation of the Third Temple is also tied to the Messianic age, a time when peace, justice, and divine presence will be fully restored. In Christian eschatology, especially among certain evangelical groups, these prophecies are viewed as signs of the approaching culmination of history, aligning with apocalyptic passages in the New Testament that speak of a renewed Jerusalem and pivotal events centered around the temple. This blending of Jewish and Christian interpretations creates a potent narrative that spans thousands of years and multiple faith traditions. The specificity of the ancient descriptions detailing altars, courts, chambers, and the return of sacrificial worship gives believers a sense of tangible reality, as though the plan for the Third Temple is already divinely sanctioned and awaiting human action. These prophecies are often studied alongside modern events, with some seeing contemporary developments in Jerusalem, archaeological discoveries, or political decisions as fulfilling ancient words. For devout observers, every stone uncovered, every religious discussion about temple rites, and every shift in control over the Temple Mount can be perceived as another step toward fulfillment. The weight of prophecy lends the idea of rebuilding an air of inevitability and sacred urgency, making it not just a matter of religious architecture, but of destiny itself. This deeply rooted expectation continues to shape discourse, inspire movements, and fuel both hope and controversy in our present time, bridging the ancient world with unfolding modern history. The political and religious tensions surrounding the Temple Mount are among the most complex and sensitive issues in the world today. This site, sacred to both Jews and Muslims, is at the heart of a centuries old struggle that blends theology, history, and nationalism. For Jews, it is the holiest place on earth, the location of the first and second temples, the spiritual center of ancient Israel, and the focal point of prayer and longing for generations. For Muslims, it is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, the third holiest site in Islam, connected to the Prophet's night journey. These deep spiritual attachments create an environment where even small changes, whether archaeological digs, political statements, or shifts in security policy, can spark major unrest. The modern geopolitical context adds yet another layer of volatility, as control over the Temple Mount is tied to broader questions about sovereignty, identity, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. International powers, religious groups, and activists all have stakes in what happens there, often interpreting developments through their own prophetic or political lenses. Efforts to assert greater Jewish access or the possibility of rebuilding a temple are seen by many in the Muslim world as direct threats to Islamic heritage, leading to intense opposition and sometimes violent reactions. Similarly, any perceived restriction on Muslim worship sparks outrage and protest. These tensions are further inflamed by the media, where images, rhetoric, and rumors can rapidly circulate and amplify fears. Leaders on both sides face the challenge of balancing religious freedoms with political realities, while outside actors may use the Temple Mount as a rallying point to advance ideological agendas. The result is a fragile and combustible situation where prophecy, nationalism, and faith collide. In such an atmosphere, the mere discussion of the Third Temple is enough to provoke strong emotions, both hopeful and hostile. For those who see the site's future through the lens of prophecy, modern-day events are not isolated incidents but steps in a divine plan, adding a sense of inevitability to the tension. This convergence of religious devotion, historical grievance, and geopolitical maneuvering ensures that the Temple Mount will remain a focal point of both global attention and local conflict, making it one of the most symbolically and strategically significant pieces of land in the world. The red heifer ritual, as described in the Hebrew scriptures, holds a unique and mysterious place in biblical tradition. According to the ancient laws given in the book of Numbers, a flawless red heifer, one without blemish or defect and never having been used for work, was to be sacrificed and burned outside the camp, with its ashes used to create the water of purification. This water was essential for cleansing those who had become ritually impure, especially through contact with the dead. Without such purification, entrance into the holy precincts of the temple was forbidden. Because of this, the red heifer was not just an ordinary sacrifice, but a key requirement for restoring ritual purity on a national level. In prophetic discussions, the appearance of a perfect red heifer is often seen as a necessary precursor to the rebuilding of the temple and the resumption of ancient priestly practices. Over centuries, tradition records only a handful of such animals ever qualifying under these strict criteria, making their appearance rare and symbolically charged. In modern times, renewed interest in the red heifer has emerged, especially among groups who see its discovery or breeding as a sign that prophecy is moving toward fulfillment. The use of genetic science to breed a perfect specimen has sparked debate, with some viewing it as a legitimate way to meet scriptural requirements, while others see it as artificially forcing the timeline of divine events. For those who believe in its prophetic significance, the presence of a qualifying red heifer could mean that all practical barriers to temple reconstruction are being removed, paving the way for a monumental shift in the religious landscape of Jerusalem. For critics or skeptics, however, it represents a highly charged symbol that could inflame religious and political tensions in an already volatile region. The red heifer's ashes are not only about ritual cleansing, but also about preparing a people for the most sacred of encounters, making its role deeply spiritual and theological. Its arrival in the modern era is thus seen as more than a curiosity, it is a potential trigger for actions and events with far-reaching consequences, uniting ancient ritual law with contemporary political and prophetic expectations in a way that few other symbols can. The construction of the Third Temple is viewed by many as one of the most sensitive and controversial issues in the modern Middle East, not only because of its religious significance, but also because of its location on the Temple Mount, a site sacred to both Jews and Muslims. For those anticipating prophetic fulfillment, the Temple Mount is not simply a piece of real estate, it is the most holy ground in the Jewish faith, the place where the first and second temples once stood. Any effort to rebuild there would inevitably draw global attention and potentially provoke intense political, religious, and even military responses. The site is currently home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, two of Islam's most revered landmarks, making the question of construction far more than a religious matter, it is a geopolitical flashpoint. In prophetic interpretations, the rebuilding of the temple is a non-negotiable milestone in the unfolding of end-time events, an act that signals a major turning point in human history. This is why movements advocating for the preparation of temple vessels, priestly garments, and training for Levitical priests are seen as laying the groundwork for something monumental. Yet, from a practical standpoint, such efforts are fraught with obstacles, including strict religious laws, opposition from various political factions, and the potential for widespread unrest. The tension lies in the intersection of faith, archaeology, prophecy, and international diplomacy, as any step toward construction would reverberate far beyond Jerusalem, influencing global religious relations and possibly shifting alliances. For some believers, these difficulties are seen not as deterrents but as evidence that the stage is being divinely set, with resistance itself fulfilling aspects of prophecy that speak of trials and opposition before the final fulfillment. Others approach the subject with caution, recognizing that any move toward building could ignite conflicts that draw in nations from across the world. In this way, the Third Temple is not merely a theological topic, but a focal point of international concern, embodying the intersection of ancient scripture with modern politics. Its potential construction represents not just the revival of an ancient institution, but a seismic event that could reshape both the spiritual and political landscapes of the 21st century, making it one of the most closely watched and debated prophetic subjects in our time. For those who follow prophetic timelines, the Third Temple is not an isolated event, but a catalyst that could trigger a series of interconnected occurrences leading to the fulfillment of end-time prophecies. Many interpretations suggest that the rebuilding will usher in a period of unprecedented religious significance, drawing global attention to Jerusalem as the epicenter of spiritual and political activity. In such views, the temple becomes the setting for prophetic milestones such as the restoration of sacrificial practices, the rise of a global leader who will play a central role in the unfolding narrative, and a final confrontation between good and evil. These interpretations are often rooted in a careful reading of ancient texts, where the temple serves not only as a symbol of God's presence, but also as a stage upon which the ultimate spiritual drama plays out. The act of building, therefore, is seen as far more than a national or cultural achievement. It is the fulfillment of divine orchestration, where each step moves humanity closer to a climactic moment foretold in Scripture. In this framework, events like the gathering of nations against Israel, global economic upheavals, and even natural disasters are woven into the larger tapestry of signs pointing toward the culmination of history. The temple, in this sense, becomes both a literal structure and a prophetic clock, counting down the moments until a divine intervention reshapes the world. However, such beliefs also raise questions about human responsibility, as some see the potential for conflict, deception, or misinterpretation of signs as equally possible outcomes. This duality hope for divine fulfillment alongside fear of turmoil creates an atmosphere of urgency and watchfulness among believers. Every archaeological discovery, political negotiation, or religious announcement related to the Temple Mount is analyzed not only for its immediate impact, but for its prophetic weight. In this way, the Third Temple is viewed as the ultimate convergence point of faith, prophecy, and history, where the spiritual realm and earthly events align in a way that has been anticipated for millennia. For many, this expectation does not lead to passive waiting, but to active preparation, whether through prayer, teaching, or participation in efforts to make construction possible, because they see themselves as living in a generation that could witness the fulfillment of one of the most significant prophecies ever recorded. The discussion of the Third Temple is far more than an academic or political debate. It is a subject that carries deep spiritual meaning and, for many, prophetic urgency. Whether one views these developments as the unfolding of a divine plan or as a critical moment in human history, there is no denying the powerful emotions, hopes, and fears that surround it. The possibility that we may be living in a time when long, anticipated events are aligning gives us both a reason to reflect deeply and a call to stay watchful. This is a moment to seek wisdom, to remain grounded in truth, and to understand the gravity of what may be unfolding before our eyes. Thank you for joining me on this journey through prophecy, history, and possibility. May you carry forward the knowledge and insight we've explored today, and may it inspire you to seek clarity and peace, no matter what the future holds. I wish you all the very best. Stay alert, stay strong, and may your path be guided by wisdom and discernment.